Welcome to the Legal Leaders Podcast, brought to you by InView, LawView's community for in-house legal professionals, where we dive into the heart of the legal profession to bring you unfiltered discussions with industry titans on a broad spectrum of topics.
Hello and welcome to the Legal Leaders Podcast. My name is Emma and I am your host today, and I am joined by Josh Lute. Josh is the VP Legal at Dutch Bros in the US, and today our conversation is really going to be focusing on balancing your duty to the business and your client versus how your personal career growth, when to put your ego aside and say, look, this is what's best for the business. And Josh, you're going to share with us your career journey as well and what that's looked like for you over the years. I'm really excited to get talking to you and hear all about your journey. But first, tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us about your current role, what you do, and what's led you to where you are now.
Thanks so much, Emma. It's an honor to be here, and it's really, really great to talk about this topic today. So yeah, I started at Dutch Bros, which we're a drive-through coffee chain. We're headquartered in Grants Pass, Oregon, so a big town that you've all heard of, I'm sure. We started as a small push cart on the rail, near the railroad tracks by the local post office, and today we have over 875 locations across the western and southern United States.
Wow.
Just opened in Florida. And that growth has happened over about 32 years. And so it's kind of we joke that we're we say that we're a 32-year-old startup, what it feels like here sometimes. But, and so, my journey with Dutch Bros began actually with the original location. When I was in high school, I worked there as a broista, as we call it, not barista, broista.
Yeah, I love it.
We call it because of Dutch Bros. And, I worked for a few years for the small mom and pop shop and really never thought it was fun. Didn't think I'd ever be back. And, many years later, I was working as an attorney in Portland, Oregon, and doing employment and other types of litigation. And I got a call one day out of the blue from an old friend who now was the GM, kind of chief operating officer of Dutch Bros. And they were looking for some legal help. And I agreed to take the role on. I moved my family back to Grants Pass from where I was and took over as their only attorney at the time.
Wow.
And so we were a smaller company, still a family business, closely held, and kind of really operate on the West Coast. And I came in as there was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 or 50 employees at the time. And that was 12 years ago.
Wow. And what was that like coming in was it the first sort of like permanent legal position at Dutch Bros?
Well, they'd been an attorney before me. He kind of, like a lot of people, he wore multiple hats. He was more of in the development space and did development for the company. And I think, that at some point he decided that he really was a development attorney, wanted to stay in development. And as, many of us that are in-house counsel know, you kind of start to have to become a little bit of a jack of all trades and possibly master of none. And so I think, that at some point he decided to return to private practice and do development and all that. And, but the position really needed at that point, someone that was willing to come in and do it all, real estate, yes, but also employment, corporate and risk. And, to start we were a franchise concept. So franchise. And, that really true general counsel role. And, I fit with kind of my career goals and personality. And so I took the job on. And so I was really the first, I think I might've been the first person that had the title general counsel. I can't recall, but definitely first real generalist to take over and kind of run all of the different parts of the legal function.
And what was that experience like from you leaving private practice to come into general counsel, do it all sort of position where the business is looking to you for the answers?
Well, I stepped into a role where, in a big law firm, let's just back up. A big law firm, you have lots of other partners and associates and people that kind of mentor you and teach you and kind of show you the ropes a little bit. And then you move into a role where, I was the only attorney. I was one of only a few people in the company that even had an advanced degree in a discipline. And there's no guidebook, there's no handbook, there's no manual for being in-house counsel. Every company is unique in some ways. And so you step in and have to start just figuring out problems and asking, good questions and, how does this business work and what are its needs and what are its priorities? What kind of issues does it have? What are its risk tolerances? And you just have to start figuring it out. And so, I think the thing I was always looking for, because I always was kind of into to studying and research, was, well, let me go find someone's probably written the book on how to be a good general counsel. And there's certainly been a lot of those books written in recent years, but at the time I don't remember finding very many. And I was like, wow, that's something I have to figure out on my own. And I was in Grants Pass, is a little more of a remote area, a little more rural, so it's not like a huge bar, the in-house counsel bar group there. It's just kind of, I think I found one other in-house counsel I could bounce ideas off locally. And then, yeah, you have to really start figuring, kind of figure things out on your own and working with business leaders that don't actually know what your job is either. So, what does in-house counsel do, right? Well, nobody in our company had any experience working in a large company, much less a company with an in-house attorney. And so they couldn't really tell me what my job was either. So you had to work together to kind of define it. And so it was a lot of fun for sure. I mean, we were a small, scrappy, kind of West Coast culture, which is a little more relaxed culture. And we, drive through coffee and lots of energy, lots of excitement, lots of fun, that started to get really successful.
So talk us through, I guess, the maybe the most significant time or change through your time at Dutch Bros in terms of the business. And I guess it's looking at that conversation we wanted to bring up today, is when you balancing the needs of the business versus your own career goals and what you want to do. Can you tell us about a time for you where that really kind of came to a head and how you dealt with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that's what we talked about earlier. And I think it's really important. We started out, like I said, we were pretty small and, scrappy company. And then we got, really successful. And, we went through from being a privately held family company to then having an equity partner. And then we changed our business model from franchising to company owned. We went through a period of for us, rapid growth. We were opening up only about 20 to 25 franchise locations a year for many years. And then we were doing over 100 locations of company owned, or 100 locations, most of which were company owned. So that was already just the magnitude of growth and, needing to make sure that the company had the resources and the people to do all that growth. And then, the real inflection point for me, came, we decided in 2021, we decided to do an IPO and go public. And, I remember I went and met with our, our CEO at the time and our co-founder. And, I was like, I'm not a capital markets attorney. I didn't come out of one of the big, Manhattan law firms that does this work. I've never taken a company public, never worked for a public company. And so, we really started having to navigate, what does that look like? What's my role? How do I help? How do we go through this process? And to be fair, most of the people in our company didn't have that experience. We still had a lot of people that were homegrown, if you will, that kind of came from within even from the shops on up into leadership positions. We hadn't really recruited a lot of quote heavy hitters, that came from large public companies or other companies that had that experience. And so it really was a learning experience for the entire leadership team. It just so happens that, especially in an IPO, the legal and the finance team are, have a little more to do than others, through that process. So at least that was my experience. So, really was that moment when I started to think is that, what am I contributing? How am I contributing? How am I performing? And what are the needs of this company? Am I meeting those needs? And if not, what do we need to do about it to make sure that we've got, in my opinion, that, my job as a general counsel is to help with the rest of the leadership team, help a company succeed, right? You're hired, yes, to have a legal expertise. But our job is to help the company be profitable, successful, achieving its goals and objectives. And, taking a hard look and thinking about how, am I contributing to that? Am I impeding that? How am I, serving and supporting this organization, in light of everything it's going through and its current needs, which companies change, right? And
Mm.
when we were a privately held family owned business, where, me and the co-founder would go out cycling on a Thursday afternoon because why not, and, now we were morphing into this publicly traded, more larger and a little more, just more intense business. Times had changed. And so, how are we going to adapt our teams and our leadership? And that was definitely the question before me from like the legal leader as running the legal department. And just maybe a little more background. I mean, by that point, we'd gone from just me to, I had I think I had a total of 6, maybe 7 attorneys on staff at the
Wow.
time. And we had, a legal department of about 20 to 25, give or take, just depending on, we were over a few other functions like safety and risk and insurance. So there were some of those staff there too, but not a tiny department, but
Mm.
obviously not like a big one. But, all of this was, again, supporting this growth of this fast growing company that was now a public company. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. And I can only imagine there'd be parts of that where you'd kind of be like, it's almost sad, like you're leaving behind this really small, tight-knit family feel that you had, and then you're, going into this next phase. Like, was there a part of you that was kind of like, oh, do I want to stay through this? Or like, I don't know. I just think that like that's such a big transition to see from like someone who's been there so early on.
Yeah, I mean, and, in any change, right? I mean, I have
Mm.
children, and so I look back and think about, man, I really loved it when they were 3, 4, and 5, and now
Yeah.
they're grown and in college, and you have that kind of nostalgia about it. So certainly, I mean, the company that I came into, kind of its overall kind of ethos, um, was growing up, right? And Travis talked about a lot. One thing, our co-founder's name is Travis Boersma, he talks about how his kid was going off to college, and some of these. It's growing up. And it was growing for good reasons, right? We wanted
Mm.
to be able to provide more opportunities for people that have leadership roles and to be able to run and own their own shops, and all of those reasons why we were growing were good. So certainly, but I also think I'm an ambitious person. I think like most attorneys, and it was great to have stepped into a company when it was still a very small, a relatively small, privately held company and family-owned business, and see it through multiple stages of growth and be part of the leadership team that helped guide it through that. I mean, it was fantastic experience, which I wouldn't trade for the world. And so, yeah, you have kind of these conflicting emotions, similar to probably, like I had when my kids went off to college, because you
Yeah.
decided that they're growing and they're kind of, changing, and things are, it's just inevitable, right? But yeah, there's certainly an element of like, gosh, I wish we could, back in the day when we would have, you know, uh, we'd have races on 3 wheels around the, like little 3-wheel bicycles around our headquarters building,
Yeah.
just for fun on a Friday afternoon. Haven't yet. So yeah, there's just times change, but ultimately though, I think the reasons for our growth and what we were doing, we all really believed in, and knew that, it was going to take a little more work now to get to help this company grow and stay within, the boundaries of being a public company.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's so true. And so that decision for you when you were looking at, okay, what does the business need? Where am I in this picture? What's the value I'm giving? What decision did you end up making there?
Yeah. Well, so after, we'd been public for about 6 months, and I'd, really been, did all the board meetings and all those stuff. And I started realizing, like, I think that this company could benefit from somebody that has been a public company, in-house attorney before, or general counsel before. That was one component, right? I thought, okay, there's things that I don't know. Like we're for our company, we're moving to uncharted territories, and I've never been there before.
Mm.
And how how good of a job can I do in guiding and kind of helping teach, people, or helping our leadership team through some of these, sometimes, choppy waters of being a public company, and having a board and having governance and having a lot of things that you don't have to have at the same level when you're a closely held private family business. And I thought, I just really think that we need somebody with that experience. But also, I still I've always looked for more mentorship and leadership and guidance in my career, someone to help me grow up. I mean, we were now recruiting outside executives in a way that we hadn't as much up to that point, working with executives, working with, some of the dynamics that go along with building a leadership team, building a board. And then also, I think my own team, looking at my own team and its development and thinking, how do I help take them to the next level? I've got newer attorneys, I've had some experienced attorneys, and I wanted to be sure that I was doing right by them as well. And, I found myself very, very, very busy in the day-to-day running of a public company and not having as much time to devote to them. And then finally, I think my own personal life, like I said, I have children. I'm a father of 5. And actually
Busy.
with, yeah. And a lot of my kids were now, they're in high school, they're involved in sports. A few of them were getting ready to go off to college. And I just thought, wow, the demands of this job are increasing. The needs of this company are increasing. Do I want to, kind of continue to ratchet up my drive and my level of involvement, commitment, or do I need to have, or do I want to really make sure I have that time and protect that time that's important to me to
Mm,
be with my kids, to go to be able to go to all of their sports. And that's a personal decision, right? I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people out there that maybe are probably better time management efficiency folks than I am. And they're able to juggle a lot of things. And like, I've watched, some of the podcasts here and that Lobby does and others. And I think, but for me, it wasn't working out as well. I was
mm,
really struggling to make all of the things click. So with all that together, I actually put it together in a little short memo because that's just what I do. And I went and met with, I took our co-founder out to breakfast one day and just said, hey, I need to talk to you about how things are going and where I'm at, what I see the needs of this company are, and what I see the needs of my own personal life. And, we sat for an hour and we just sat there and ate breakfast and chatted about life and our history. I mean, at this point, we've been working together for 12 years. I've actually known him since I was 16 and he was, I
oh,
think, 23.
wow.
So, they have a lot of history. And I think that it's time for us to look for a chief legal officer or a general counsel or whatever title that can bring outside experience and outside perspective and prior public company experience to help us get this thing set up right. And for all the reasons I mentioned, all the reasons I just mentioned, in
Mm,
terms of personal development, team development, family time. And we, had a great conversation. And he said, I think you're right. I think it is probably time for us to look for that. And I also met with our CEO, had a similar conversation with him. And then, we fortunately, me and our chief administrative officer took on the job of recruiting and finding, who would essentially become my boss.
yeah.
Which is always a nice thing to do. It's pretty rare you get to hire your own supervisor, I think, but we got to do it. And yeah, it was, that was kind of the process I went through and the thought, how I arrived at the decision. And it definitely, and I will even tell you on the night before I went and met with our co-founder, I remember going and thinking like, oh my gosh, am I making the right decision? This
Mm,
feels like the opposite of what I should do with my career because
mm,
I have it. I'm the general counsel of a public company. Never ever thought I would get here when I first took the job at Dutch Bros, but here I am. I have this really cool thing that makes me feel really important and valuable and significant. And I'm giving that up, and why? And I have a lot of kind of heart. I remember second guessing that a lot, but then I look back at the reasons, like why did I make these decisions? And to me, and again, just to me, the issue was my own ego, that I couldn't, the idea that I wouldn't be that person anymore, that I
mm,
couldn't hold myself out as the general counsel. It was that it felt like, I was diminished in a sense, right?
mm,
Even though I knew I was doing it for a lot of really great reasons
yeah.
that I was excited about. Um, and so, but ultimately I didn't obviously have the meeting. I showed up, but it was tough. It wasn't just something I thought like, and I didn't have any struggle with or debate. In fact, I probably spent, a good month, really thinking about it before I even met with him.
Mm,
But, but I can say it was the right decision. And for all of the reasons that I talked about, it was absolutely the right decision. For the company, for me, for my family, and ultimately even my career. And I do genuinely believe that now that I think I've had our chief legal officer here for about 18 months, and the mentorship and the guidance and the training and the camaraderie and all of the things that I thought I would get by kind of bringing in another even more experienced leader has turned out to be the case. And so in that way, I feel like by the end the end of the day, as my career goes, I'll end up in a better place because I took the opportunity to take a step back and give somebody else the reins, and then learn and watch and grow as they continue to build this company.
I think that's such an amazing story. And I think, to be honest, I think that's the everything you've demonstrated in that decision making process is, they are attributes of a good leader. Like, you are a good leader for being able to step back and look at that and actually make that decision. What I get, yeah, and I guess it's so hard because you're thinking, what's everyone else going to think when they see that this person's come in above me? And it's that ego side of things where you're like, oh, but could I do it? Should I be the person to do it? Like, why am I letting this slide? And it's just that constant conflict. But yeah, it's a big decision to make. But like you said, you feel and the proof has been that it was the right decision for your career, for you, for your family, for the business. How would you, if someone's in that position where they're feeling like, I need, how do you recognize in yourself when it's time to stop and take a step back, or take a moment for yourself?
Well, and I just like one thing that you said I really liked, where you talked about, the opinion of others and seeing, some of the pressures. And for me, every single person that really mattered to me thought it was a great decision, and fully supported it. My wife, my kids, obviously, to have a little more time with me. I was, I'd gotten so busy being the general counsel of a company that, even when I was at home, I'd be, on my phone, on my computer, and all of us in-house counsel know what that's like, right? It's, you're just always at the beck and call, and you need to be there and available. And yet I was not able to do some of the things I wanted to do with them. Our CEO, actually, he took me aside and said that was actually one of the most impressive decisions I've ever seen somebody make, to come
Yeah.
and talk to me that way. And I was like, I wasn't doing it for the kudos, obviously, but so the people that truly matter, the people whose opinion I really respected and valued and wanted to continue to maintain the good, and be in their good graces, were all very supportive and understood it, so, I think that's important to understand, is like, whose opinion matters on this, right?
Yeah.
Is it the people on LinkedIn that are going to like look at your profile and wonder what happened? Is it, I think a lot of times you give a lot of power and a lot of credibility to the opinions of people that you don't ever meet. You'll never know. And
Yeah.
frankly, like, don't even know anything about your life,
Mm.
And so I think that's important, is too, is like, so when to then move into your question, how do you know? And that's the people, you need to look at those people and talk to those people, know, where am I at? How am I doing? How am I doing as a dad? How am I doing as a partner? How am I doing as an employee? And then you got to ultimately trust yourself and trust your judgment that I think this is the right thing for me at this time. There's always more time to kill yourself working and work really hard. I mean, I've worked, like, again, I like probably every person that ever listens to the podcast that's in-house counsel has worked hard for where they've gotten, and that's okay. It's not a diatribe against hard work. I mean, but everybody gets to a point in their life where they have to think about, what are my priorities right now? And I had two of my daughters were just going to be finishing high school. I had a couple more years with them, at home, and I thought, man, this is my priority now. Like, I want to have a little more time to be with them, to connect with them, to help them, as a father. And I was able to do that, right? I didn't have to step away from my job. I was able to find another role in the company, in the legal department. And I think, so you have to listen to the people that really matter, and then really have to listen and trust yourself. And I think that, we're really kind of taught to be gluttons for punishment as attorneys. I mean, that's what we're hired by people to do, to really just go and do the hard things and show up at the, in the 11th hour, or, deal with a lot of problems that other people don't want to deal with. So you I think, can become numb to like how you're doing personally. And I think that can be a problem, right? Because it might lead you to places you don't want to go. And so for me, it was just really critical that I listened to myself in that moment, and then the people that I loved, and be sure, I was making a good decision for me. And ultimately, I do think for my long-term career. Yeah.
No, it's a pretty powerful thing you did, and I think it's important for people to hear that as well. Like, there's no weakness in saying that I think there is someone that can take this company to the next level, and it's not me right now. Like, I don't think, but we're kind of in this work culture where maybe that is seen as weakness, and that's a cultural thing. And I think it's just about bringing the human element to what you did and the reasons behind it. And like you say, anyone that was close to you knew it was the right decision for you at that time.
Well, and I think that, certainly as attorneys, our job is to be strong and to work hard, to provide good answers, to show up when help is needed. But, the idea that it's not okay to to have times when you're weak, times when you need help, or times when you need to ask for help is in my opinion rather toxic,
Mm.
because the fact is that there's not a human on this planet or a person in any career that hasn't got to a place where like, man, I need some help, right? I need someone to kind of, you know, I need a, whether it's a break, whether it's a sabbatical, whether it's, I mean, we don't, people go on like 60-day sabbaticals that we don't go, oh, that person's weak. We're
Mm.
like, yeah, good, go take a break, go get it, step away for a minute,
Yeah.
um, and I think, and throughout my career, I had seen people that didn't make that choice, and the decisions were made for them, or because they really weren't, they'd done really well for our company, but maybe they got to a place where the position had outgrown them, or they just didn't have quite the skill set that they needed for the next chapter, and wouldn't let it go, and would hold on to it and kind of strive, those situations never seem to end well. And I personally thought, it's not going to happen to me. Like, life is not going to happen to me. I'm going to make my life happen.
Mm.
And so I think in that way, I wouldn't call that weakness either, because I think it actually is easier to hold on to something and to try to, to hide or do whatever you have to do to make, to stay grasping onto something that you want, and not to go, what, I think at the end of the day, what I want for this company is to have the best chance of success. And, while I certainly am glad I still have a role in what I think is one of the best companies, on the planet. I really was like, I think it's time for someone to help take this to the next level. And, we've seen it, like the Dutch Bros has brought in a lot of incredibly gifted, brilliant new kind of outside leaders to help us, in that next phase. And, it's an awesome time to be here. It's awesome time to learn. And I count my new chief legal officer as one of those people. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that she has some skills that I need to learn. And
Mm.
so it's fun to work with her and watch her work with our new executive team, and continue to work with our co-founder and others on the board. It's like being in front row seats to like watching of the building of I think what's going to be one of the next great companies. So yeah, I mean, again, I don't have any regrets about it, but I can certainly see it's hard to make that decision, because I think everything in your pride, and especially in your drive as an ambitious attorney, is to like, it's it always has to be more and more and more, and I just don't
Mm.
think that's always the case.
Yeah, I think it's such an important message, and it is this mentality of like, do more, learn more, take on this. But I love that you actually said no. The best thing right now is to stop. So obviously your chief legal officer's been in the company now for around 18 months, I think you mentioned. What has been some things that you've witnessed in that time that you've that cemented the fact that this was the right person? Or has there been some like learnings for you about going through that process of hiring your boss?
Yeah. So I mean, right, ultimately, like, you want someone that is a good fit for your company,
Mm.
right? And I mean, I think that I had that. I mean, because I grew up working in our shops, I got our culture, so that's always something that we really protect here. And I'm sure every company protects its culture, but for us, it's so critical that people come in that are and really understand that we have a really precious thing at our company.
Mm.
And so took it very seriously as we were interviewing and making sure, we want someone that sees that too. And so definitely our new chief legal officer had that. She'd actually been a long time. I'd known her for over a decade as kind of a group of attorneys I kind of got to know and tried to, have on speed dial for just bouncing ideas. And so she was actually one of the top. I mean, came to mind, but then when she applied, I was like, that's amazing.
Mm.
We had a lot of other fantastic candidates too, right? And I think, but it was, she was clearly a great candidate, and ended up getting the job. And so as far as, her abilities and kind of what my learnings, I mean, she, I think a good in-house attorney, right, in a larger company or company with a, growth like ours, is the ability to work in teams, really that ability to work with a lot of other smart, hardworking and ambitious, driven leaders, and provide the legal advice and some of the risk management and some of the other, things, the hard skills that we have as attorneys, and soft skills. It's pretty fun to watch, because, I worked for years. It was mostly people that I had known since I was in high school. I mean,
Mm.
most of our leaders at the time, many of them had come from up within the shops, or were close friends of Travis, and I'd known them since I was very young. And so, I think that was just a different dynamic to operate in, where you're working with people that you've kind of known for most of your life versus, working with a bunch of, new leaders um, that didn't come from within the company, and just the dynamics of that. And then working with we hadn't had a true board of directors, I mean, that in like that public company sense. So watching those dynamics and just learning, watching my CLO navigate that, really learn how to build, consensus for ideas, work in the realm of the possible. She just has a really great way of running, of working with other people, and then also just leading a team. She's got a different style than I have, so I get to watch that and think, okay, would I make that decision the same way or not? And then, and her and I have we absolutely have, full freedom to just, I don't, get together and be like, why did you do that? How
Mm.
come we're not doing it this way? So it's less like, yes, I think that she has a lot to teach me. I kind of view her as a mentor, but I also think that we're colleagues in the sense that she's like, hey, come in my office, challenge me on this. Why, here's what I'm thinking about doing. Like, what should I do it that way? So, it's really kind of
Mhm.
like on the job training in in-house leadership. And so it's been awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's just giving you space, I guess, to look at what you want to do, where you want to focus your energy, what you want to learn. And it's time you might not have had you said, I'll do it, I'll take that all on. Or, it's that beauty of having a little bit more space in your time, in your day.
Oh,
Um,
and the one thing that it has, I mean, the reason I came to Dash Bros is I love the people. I love, I was, we call it, at Dash Bros, we call it compelling future. So my story, right, I was I was a shy teenager, and I got this job at a coffee company where they taught me how to engage with customers and have conversations and learn how
hmm,
to work on a team, and so all the kind of skills that a good job teaches us, right?
yeah.
And maybe, at Dash Bros a little more, because it's always with a smile and being kind to others. And, even, I learned how to talk to kind of just about anybody. And our goal is to leave that customer, or have that customer leave with a smile on their face. It's
Mm,
really, and if you do any research about our company, you'll find that a lot of those comments, like, Dash Bros is the best part of my day. Their baristas are so friendly and engaging. And so all those kind of skills that I learned, I believe in that. And I believe that we're, training, anybody that wants to come work for us and learn how to, have excellent customer service, and learn how to engage and talk with people there from all different walks of life. And so, what it's enabled me to do is I really get to focus on that now, which is really where my passion is. So, I'm kind of running up the employment law. I'm running, some of the franchise law, and then, other duties is assigned, right? As all us in-house counsel have contracts and, IP and all the things come. But really my boss is like, I really, really want you to, we hadn't had a dedicated employment attorney. And she's like, I really want you to focus on, let's just make sure that we're serving the field and all of our shops as efficiently as possible, and that they're, got good processes and systems. And we've, so it's really getting to do, something that I'm really passionate about, with a company I love. And I don't have to do some of the things that maybe weren't my, I spent a lot of time, you know, I would say, I always joke that I'm not a real estate lawyer, but I've played one on TV, right? I did it, there's a lot of real estate law. There's a lot of other areas of law that, frankly, I never was really personally that interested in. And yet, as a general counsel, you're managing the work and making sure it gets done, and engaging outside counsel where appropriate. Um, and I don't have to, at least as far as I know, for a little while, I don't have to read another lease. So I
yeah,
get to work with our
such good.
crews, and training people on how to, different areas of employment law. So it gives me that ability to do something I'm really passionate about and work in a way that I'm excited to work in our
Mm,
company, because I think, really believe, and and it's not just lip service, that our people are the most important part of our company. It's our differentiator. And so how does legal support that and serve that and make sure that they feel empowered, supported, protected, as we continue to grow. And when I started, I think, we had, like I said, we had like 40, maybe 50, honestly, can't remember, headquarters employees, right? And,
yeah.
now with all of our company owned shops, we have over 20,000 employees. So it's basically kind of like a joke that I'm kind of working with us for a small city right now, and growing. So the
Yeah.
opportunity that I see there, to really be kind of on the forefront, as we say, as providing, um, kind of the employer of choice for the next generation. Um, and, anybody else who wants to apply, of course. I mean, we're just, it's going to be exciting, so that was the opportunity that was presented to me, that I was able to, as Victoria and my boss, and I kind of discussed, like, where do you really want to focus your time, And I was like, that's what I want to do right there. And she's like, you should go do it. Like, and so that's been real exciting, and also exciting. We have we have a new chief people officer and some others that share that passion. And so, it's a really exciting time, I think, to be here and to be able to focus on something instead of kind of having to be the person that has to just always answer the phone and do whatever random thing comes across your desk.
Yeah.
I mean, I still, like I said, every in-house counsel, still got plenty of that, but it's nice to have a little bit of a focus.
Just the way that the training for the people that you bring into the business who are on the store, I just think that's incredible, because I think it's a skill that, it's not really taught in school, or it's something you go out and you get life experience and you learn. And the fact that you can give people that experience and really give them this like amazing training in customer service, and which is so important no matter what you end up doing. How amazing that you get to really shape and grow that as the company grows, and that's what you're passionate about. I think that's such a success story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can honestly say that my job at Dutch Bros when I was a teenager changed who I, helped. I should say change it, but it helped form who I became. And and I've heard that story. Thousands, maybe not actually thousands, but at least hundreds of times. People have come and talked to me and said, working at Dutch Bros, I hear, here's the skills that I learned, and here's the fun that I had, and teamwork and leadership. I honestly think some of our shop managers are probably far better leaders than some of our executives, because they just so many repetitions, right? I mean, they're running crews with dozens of people on it. They're doing it for years and talking about how to deal with conflict and how to, get everybody coalesced around common goals. And I always joke, that our I mean, and it's very true. I joke, our operators and managers need to come in and give us some like leadership and teamwork classes, because they're so good at just at some of the raw level, but yeah, so it is. It's that I do really believe like on the mission of our company, which is, to make it is, to really be a fun-loving, mind-blowing company that's making a massive difference one cup at a time. And it starts with with our customers, it starts with the communities we're in, and also with our employees, and making sure that they're being taken care of. So yeah, it's I mean, and if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have the opportunity that I'm getting now to do something that I think is a really unique. I joke that I get to be the employment lawyer for the best, coolest company that's that exists. So it's kind of it's pretty fun. But it's and again, I get to work with some really great colleagues that where we get to really learn from each other, and include my CLO in that. She's just been a great mentor and teaching me how to up my game as a leader. And so yeah, I think it's been a great decision.
Yeah. And on the topic of leadership, when you're a legal leader, you are working for a legal leader, and leadership, I think it's not necessarily specific to legal, what would you say is like the most important aspect of the role of a legal leader?
Wow, that's a really hard question, and I knew you were going to ask me it, and I think I'm like trying to jot notes down, and when you say the most important aspect, but I just think we work. There's a lot, but I just think we work with teams, right? Especially inside. One of the differences of maybe a little bit with in-house counsel and outside counsel is that there's really there's nothing that happens in a company that doesn't involve a lot of people and a lot of teams typically. So individual contributors it's really important, but so is the ability to work across disciplines with multifunctional, multidiscipline. So I think that ability to kind of approach a problem with humility and connect with the right people, that's something that I think I don't know if that's the most important, but I know that's a really important thing that I don't remember learning in law school. Like I remember law school being kind of a pretty competitive place where it was like you kind of were hoping to get ahead of everybody, maybe a little bit. Maybe that was just my experience, but I do think that kind of team focus is important, especially in a company like ours. It's really collaborative, and but and I think I do think humility is important. I think that and I think these are things that most attorneys would say, like integrity and just the ability to really the ability to solve problems collectively, right, is something that you do in companies. And there's really most of the issues I work on have a legal component. But then there's many other components. There's operations, there's budget, there's all these other components you have to factor in. Like, we got to fix this problem. Well, the law says X. I'm done. And that's not how it works. You got to say, well, here's what the law says. Okay, well, now let's work on this. Figure out how, okay, so what does that mean for a company and how we're going to, I always say that I joke that sometimes that, it's like outside counsel, it's nice because they get, here's the memo or here's the advice, do this, don't do that.
Yeah.
And like, okay, great. Well, now I got to figure out how I'm going to get 20,000 people to do this and not that. And that involves, operations and scale. And so that stuff, like, that kind of team, the ability to work and function as a team is something I have a huge amount of respect for, and I'm learning a lot about. And honestly, I think one of the strengths of my leader that I've learned by watching her is that, that she's really able to, like, she values like those personal relationships. She prioritizes that team and her executive team. And it's versus, you're my own personal, like what's good for me in my career. And so I watch that to me has been something that I'm learning a lot about now. Like I said, is that the most important? I don't know. I mean, I think that it can maybe be context specific, on the type of company you work for and what your issues are. But certainly at our company, that collaborative, teamwork based approach to getting things done is really critical. And I think it's a tough skill set to learn because it involves, you have to be humble and, you have to be willing to accept accountability. And there's there's a lot of books written about this stuff I could go off on, but we can save that for another podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
I came in on the plane this morning. I was reading a book on teamwork on a plane that I was
cool.
really enjoying. So yeah, and it's like that's actually one thing we're working on in our legal team right now is we're kind of with sharing some books around about teamwork and how to work as a team, and it's really cool. It's fun to kind of be building a legal team, or continue to build, I should say, a legal team in light of the continued growth and success of our company.
Yeah, I love that. Maybe you'll have to send me the name of the book and we can chuck it in the show notes so that anyone else wants to read it, they can check it out. I'd love to kind of wrap up with a question, and that is, looking back on your career to date, is there anything you would do differently and why? Like, we've obviously talked through like a very pivotal moment for you. Is there anything that you think back on, you're like, I wish I'd done that differently?
I guess all I can say is I know that I have always tried to do the absolute best I knew how to do in that moment, right? I think that's all that can be asked of us. So I don't have any regrets in that way, or like you wish I did differently. I do think that networking is a really powerful thing, and building those relationships and in taking some time to, I think I invested a lot, especially as a new attorney in a company. I was really invested in building my connections there and the growth there. And I probably didn't spend as much time building relationships and connections outside of the company. And actually, it's funny. I remember it's 2020 before the pandemic. I remember I made my personal goal. I'm like, okay, this is the year I've been here. I'd been there like 8 years. This is the year I'm going to go to some conferences. I'm going to go and start really building a better network of in-house attorneys that I can kind of connect when I need to talk stuff. And, that didn't go very well for a few years.
Pandemic.
Well, and then actually some of these online communities sprung up out of it, which I think is pretty cool. Because back then it was like, if you wanted to join like a certain board, it was like, well, cool. Can you fly to this place or that place? So I think, I do think that building my network of peers is something I would have probably invested. It's taken a little more time to invest in. I think I had to learn a lot of lessons the hard way and maybe spend a little too much time spinning my wheels on issues that I probably could have, gotten a little help from others. But, I think that's something I know that, that InView and others, are trying to help because and I don't know what it is. I just find a lot of my attorney friends also are kind of, doing their own thing and nose down, working hard and not really thinking about it. And I do think there's a lot of power in the ability to connect and network. And so I definitely would have spent a little more time doing that than I did. And I think that would have helped me, maybe avoid some of the challenges I had. And, when I was really kind of going in alone.
Yeah. Oh, it's one of those things that, like you said, like there's always more you wish you could do, but at the time, like you've got to make calls on where you can focus your energy, right?
100%. Yeah. And like I said, I don't have any regrets. I don't think I ever did. I'm sure there was days when I, wasn't on my A game, but for the most part, I really do genuinely believe I tried. And I think, again, I mean, as an attorney, right, you have a duty of competency, right? You have a duty of zealous advocacy. Like, I think that if you don't feel like you have those, you have these ethical obligations you have to our clients, including when you're in-house, right? It doesn't go away just because you're not like, engaging individual clients off the street. And so, yeah, I mean, I always took that seriously, that, my job is to just throw everything I got at this problem and go get help if I don't know the answer. And, I think if I would have networked, I could have gotten more help that I didn't have to pay for, but because, but I think I think that's our ethical obligation. I take that seriously. And so I don't have like oh man, I just really didn't try hard. But I definitely think that if I, had it all to do again, I probably would have, first thing I would, one of the first things I've done is like, I'm going to go make sure I have like solid networks of people that know what to do and have maybe been there so that I can kind of bounce ideas off this. Kind of develop that a little bit later. And like I said, part of it was just isolation, I think, of being in kind of a more rural Southern Oregon community and not like in a hub of, activity. But like I said, that, I still think we did pretty all right as a company. So
I was going to say, it seems to have worked out for you pretty epically. That's not a word, but it's worked out well. And I'm really excited to see where you go.
Word. I think epically is a great word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. Yeah. And it's like life's an adventure, right? Let's, Travis Borsma, our one thing that our co-founder says so, you have a good leader, right? When everybody can repeat the things they say, right? So one thing he talks about a lot when he gives speeches to shops, from the newest baristas up to like our leadership team, is that, you need to write you write your life, right? You write the chapters of your life. And so if somebody else is writing the chapters of your life, if you're beholden to anxieties and fears and what other people think and all these other things that are kind of making your life happen, like take the pen back and write the chapters of your life. Like you should be writing the chapters of your life. And I've always taken that to heart. Like, is this serving me? Is this what I want to do? Is this really kind of how I want to live and how I want to grow as a professional, as a father, as a friend, all the other aspects we have? Well, take the pen back and make it happen for yourself. Because, I think we all kind of can easily get caught up in living our lives in ways that we think are making other people happy or impressed or, whatever. And that's not the kind of way that I want to live. But,
I love that. I think it's just such a simple idea, but just so powerful, and it's so true. And I love that you've kind of living by that as well. It's something I think I would love to just take on board as well and remind myself constantly is like, take the pen back, write your own chapter. It's such a cool thing to say and to just go and live that. So thank you so much for making the time to chat. We love all your contribution to this community. I know so many people will enjoy this very authentic, honest conversation. We love everything you do. So just a huge thank you. And if anyone wants to connect with you on LinkedIn, I'll tag your profile in the show notes so that they can reach out.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Well, it's been a real pleasure getting to know you as well. And, it's been fun to chatting. And, again, I love LawView and InView and kind of what you guys are trying to do. I'm a big fan. So anything I can do to help, I'm just a phone call away.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Josh. If you enjoyed listening, please hit follow and leave us a review on your listening platform of choice. We love engaging with our community and hearing from you. So please head to inview.lawview.com. Thank you so much for tuning in.